Imagine waking up, checking your bank account on payday, and realizing 15% of your paycheck is just gone, with no judge ever signing an order and no court date ever on your calendar. On January 7th, 2026, the Department of Education started sending out the first wave of notices to do exactly that. They paused the rollout 9 days later, but here's the dangerous part. Most people think the threat is gone. It isn't. When this pause ends, you could have as little as 30 days to protect your income before an automated federal rule takes over. The one word that decides whether any of this applies to you is default. Not behind on your payments, not delinquent, which is a separate, earlier status entirely. Specifically, formally in default, which under federal student loan rules means a full 270 days, roughly 9 months, without making a single payment. Cross that line, and an entirely different set of rules takes over, rules that skip the courtroom completely. It's a distinction that matters enormously, because being a few weeks behind on payments feels stressful but manageable, while crossing into official default status quietly flips on an entirely different, much more aggressive set of federal collection tools. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how much of your paycheck the government is legally allowed to take, the other 2 places it can take money from at the same time, and the narrow window you actually have to stop it once a notice arrives. Here's the actual mechanism. This specific process is officially called Administrative Wage Garnishment, and that single word administrative is doing an enormous amount of work in that name. Ordinary creditors, credit card companies, medical debt collectors, even most private student loan lenders, all have to sue you first and actually win a judgment in court before anyone is legally allowed to touch your paycheck. The federal government, collecting on its own defaulted student loans, doesn't. It can order your employer to start withholding directly, no lawsuit required, because it's collecting a debt owed to itself under its own statute. This is a genuinely unusual amount of power for a creditor to hold, and it exists specifically because Congress wrote federal student loan collection law to intentionally bypass the ordinary court process that every private lender, by contrast, still has to go through in full before collecting anything at all. Here's the number that should reframe how big this actually is. Somewhere between 5.5 and roughly 7.7 million borrowers are already in default right now, and the Department of Education has projected that millions more could cross that same 270-day line in the months ahead. Different official reports and independent analyses use slightly different figures depending on precisely when each individual count was actually taken, which itself tells you something important. The number has been actively climbing, not staying flat, which means whatever the true figure is by the time you're watching this, it's very likely higher than either of those numbers. This genuinely isn't some narrow, rare, unusual edge case affecting only a small handful of people. It's one of the largest simultaneous debt collection actions in the country, and it's aimed squarely at paychecks. To put that figure in real perspective, that's roughly the entire population of a major American city, every single one of them technically eligible for this exact same aggressive collection process at the exact same time, the moment the current pause actually lifts. Let's follow the actual math, because the number is smaller than 25%, but it stacks differently than ordinary debt. The federal government can take up to 15% of your disposable earnings, not 25%, like an ordinary creditor. But there's a second protection layered on top. Your weekly disposable earnings can never be pushed below $217.50, the same federal floor that protects you against ordinary debt collectors too. Say, for example, your disposable earnings come out to $800 a week after the legally required deductions. 15% of that $800 works out to exactly $120. Now run the second part of the test. Subtracting the protected $217.50 floor from that same $800 leaves $582.50 remaining. The government takes whichever number is smaller, in this case $120 a month, straight out of your paycheck, indefinitely until the debt is resolved. And unlike a lot of consumer debt, this withholding doesn't simply stop after some fixed number of payments. It simply continues, one paycheck after another, for as long as the underlying loan remains officially in default and the garnishment order itself stays active. Here's where two borrowers in the exact same situation end up somewhere completely different. Borrower 1 gets the notice, assumes there's nothing to be done about it, sets it aside, and lets the 30-day window quietly expire. The withholding order goes to their employer, and $120 a week starts disappearing with no further input from them. Borrower 2 gets the identical notice, and within that same 30-day window either requests a hearing citing financial hardship, enrolls in loan rehabilitation, or sets up a qualifying repayment plan. One of them loses that same $120 a week, week after week, for months or possibly even years on end. The other one, using the exact same starting notice, keeps their full paycheck. The actual paperwork both of these two borrowers received was completely identical, word for word. The only variable that actually changed the outcome was whether either of them acted inside that specific 30-day window or simply let it pass by unanswered. Here's the trap that catches almost everyone right now, specifically because of the pause, assuming that because nothing is currently happening, nothing is actually at risk. The government already proved in January that it's willing and able to execute this. It sent real notices to real borrowers before pausing purely to finish rolling out a new repayment plan. The infrastructure to send these notices, verify employers, and issue withholding orders already exists and has already been tested on a real, if small, group of borrowers. Restarting it at scale is a matter of flipping a switch that's already been built and proven to work, not something that needs to be constructed from nothing. There's also one more detail that catches people off guard. Unlike most collection actions, the government doesn't need a fresh court filing or a renewed judgment to keep this authority alive year after year. There's also no statute of limitations on this specific debt. It doesn't expire on its own. It doesn't quietly age out the way some other debts eventually do. And the pause everyone is living under right now is explicitly temporary, not a permanent resolution. That particular last point is genuinely worth repeating clearly on its own. One more time. Most types of consumer debt eventually become legally uncollectible after enough years pass. Federal student loan debt simply doesn't work that way. It can sit there for a decade or more and remain just as collectible as the day it first went into default. If you're not entirely sure whether your own federal loans are currently in default, subscribe, because the next video in this series walks through exactly how to check your own status in about 5 minutes, directly on the Federal Student Aid site, without needing to call anyone or wait on hold. Here's the adjacent piece that makes this bigger than just your paycheck. Wage garnishment is only one tool the government uses. The Treasury Offset Program runs alongside wage garnishment, entirely separately, and it can seize your federal tax refund in full in one single pass, regardless of how large or small that refund happens to be. It can also take up to 15% of a Social Security benefit if you're a retiree who's in default, though recipients still have to be left with a protected minimum monthly amount, similar in spirit to the weekly paycheck floor that applies to wage garnishment. For a lot of borrowers, tax refund season becomes the moment this actually gets discovered, when a refund they were counting on simply doesn't show up. It's a particularly harsh and disorienting way to find out something like this, because by the time a missing refund shows up as the very first visible sign of trouble, the underlying default has usually already been sitting there quietly for a long stretch of time, quietly accruing the exact same collection eligibility the entire way through. A refund that someone was counting on to cover a bill, a repair, or simply catch up financially can vanish entirely, with the only real notification being its absence rather than any direct communication at the moment it happens. Let's run the $800 a week example one more time, both ways, so the difference is unmistakable. Someone who doesn't act inside the 30-day window, $120 a week gone, month after month, plus their next tax refund likely intercepted on top of it. Someone who acts inside that same window, either a hearing that can reduce or pause the amount, or a rehabilitation plan that after a handful of on-time payments can actually remove the default status entirely, stopping the wage garnishment and restoring eligibility for everything that comes with being back in good standing. Loan rehabilitation specifically requires formally agreeing to and successfully completing a defined series of reasonable, income-based monthly payments over a set period of time, and completing that full series doesn't just pause the collection activity temporarily the way a simple hardship request might. It actually removes the default notation from the loan entirely, which matters for far more than just stopping garnishment on its own. The difference between those two outcomes, in the end, was never really about how much either borrower actually owed in the first place. It was entirely about knowing that this pause won't last forever, that 270 days without a payment is the exact line that changes everything, and that once a real notice arrives, the 30-day window is the entire fight. If this helped you understand what's actually coming down the pipeline, subscribe. Knowing all of this clearly before an actual notice ever shows up in your mailbox is worth infinitely more than trying to piece it together after the fact, under pressure, with only 30 days on the clock.